Okay, this is our video response to the video on the President's address. And this is the Citizens for Fair Treatment of Applicants to Tax Credit Apartment Properties. Today is Sunday, January 31st, 2010. We looked up the word cracked, C-R-A-C-K-E-D. The word cracked is defined as imperfect as a doubtful title. Cracked is defined as blemished, burst or split, broken or changing. That's the word cracked, C-R-A-C-K-E-D. We looked up the word daddy or dad. Definition could be a father, a papa, or it could mean to fall forcibly, to dash, to throw, to scatter. That's the definition of dad. So we're going to be talking about crack daddy today, because it seems the president is promoting this health plan, which is a cracked plan. In other words, it doesn't make any sense that this is a plan that he expects the American people to go along with, and yet it's a plan that's cracked. It's a plan that doesn't have any oversight whatsoever for the people that will be patients, the people that will be applying for health care, and it's very similar to the tax credit allocation, the low-income housing tax credit allocation project, which is a government program that started in 1986, funded by Congress and run by the Internal Revenue, HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development, and money is given out to the various state agencies across the country to fund apartment properties, apartments for low-income residents. And these are the properties in California, for instance, which are run by the Tax Credit Allocation Committee, which is run by William Paveo. So we're going to be asking today, Crack Daddy, is this healthcare program and the government takeover, is it going to be run like the current tax credit allocation low-income housing program, which essentially is supposed to be following HUD guidelines, HUD policy, and yet thousands of these properties across the country, we understand, are not following HUD policy and are treating applicants as well as tenants in a discriminatory manner. One of the examples we've seen is, of course, Thomas Safran Associates Properties in California, and that's run by Thomas Safran, who is a former HUD employee, and that program is supervised and directed by the State Tax Allocation Committee, which is under William Paveo, Bill Lockyer, and Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. You don't have to take my word for it, because on the Tax Credit Allocation Committee's website in California, it says very clearly on their website that they monitor tax credit properties. And monitor, of course, is defined as supervise and direct. So don't let anybody try to fool you, Crack Daddy, that these properties are run by the Internal Revenue Service, HUD, and especially they are run by the tax credit allocation committees of each state. They monitor the properties. That means they direct what the properties do. In California, the Tax Credit Allocation Committee under William Paveo and staff members like Rose Guerrera, I believe is a public official and a compliance person, these are the people that hold the workshops that tell these properties what policies they should and should not follow. So, Crack Daddy, our question again is this the kind of healthcare program that you are expecting the American people to go along with, where there will be no compliance, where if tenants have complaints, if they take them to the Tax Credit Allocation Committee of their state, the Tax Credit Committee will say, we don't take complaints. And that's exactly what Rose Guerrera told us when we took complaints to her about Thomas Safran Associates Properties. She said very clearly, this committee does not take, and this is about 15, 20 people on this committee does not take complaints against the properties. So, and for applicants, it's the same story. If applicants go to the Tax Credit Allocation Committee of the state of California, the committee says we do not take complaints. At the same time, the committee is the one responsible for whether these properties follow HUD policy or do not follow HUD policy. And of course, if they're not following HUD policy, they are not in compliance with HUD regulations, which are federal regulations. And if they are not in compliance, then they should lose their tax credits. I'm sure, Crack Daddy, Mr. President, you would agree with this. The problem is, what, when, and why, and how is there going to be enforcement? Why should the American people support you for a health care takeover by the government if the government cannot run the tax credit allocation committee with any type of compliance? In addition, there are many types of income that must be excluded from those who attend or apply to tax credit properties, and apparently many applicants were denied because the exclusions were not followed by properties like Thomas Safran Associates. In addition, tenants who did make it into the property should have their income adjusted and should have their rents adjusted, because if Thomas Safran Associates did not exclude sporadic income or any other exclusion required by federal regulation, these tenants would be required to a reduced rent. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger has assumed responsibility for tenants at a Monrovia complex, and he told them that those applicants had to be admitted to the property. So let Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger assume responsibility for those applicants who have been applied to Thomas Safran properties in California and who have been denied when they really were income qualified. So let Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger assume responsibility for those applicants who should have had their annual income adjusted in accordance with HUD policy. We spoke with Tania, Tawnia Contreras Starr of the Tax Credit Allocation Committee in California, and she tried to indicate that initially they could find no complaints against Thomas Safran Associates since 1986. Since 1986, they can't find any complaints. Well, that's unrealistic to say that there's no complaints. Every tenant complains about something. The water doesn't work, the paint is peeling, especially if it's a new building, the heat is not working. So more than likely, there's been complaints against Thomas Safran Associates, but being that the Tax Credit Allocation Committee has protected Thomas Safran Associates and directed them what policies to follow and not to follow, more than likely that committee under Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger is hiding those complaints, and as Thomas Safran Associates already admitted, they destroy the applications of those who have been denied so that there's no evidence to show that these applicants were not treated in compliance with HUD. So my question is, Mr. President, how can you assure us, Crack Daddy, that if the government takes over the healthcare system, that these people like Rose Guerrera, a public official, William Paveo, how can the American people be assured that there will be compliance with these procedures and that there will be a complaint procedure, one that's effective, where if applicants are treated unfairly or if patients are treated unfairly, they won't have to wait 3 to 6 months and be given a big runaround and contact HUD officials repeatedly or contact government officials repeatedly to get a resolution to their health care concerns. Can you assure us of that, Crack Daddy, that this is not going to occur if the government takes over the healthcare system, that there will be proper government oversight of the healthcare system? Can you assure us that the healthcare takeover will not be run like the low-income housing tax credit program is currently run by HUD?